Welcome to the new episode of Podcast 7 Laws. My name is Michal Pur. I'm a commentator and analyst, and here with me is Miroslav Barta.
Miroslav Barta, Egyptologist and archaeologist dealing with comparative studies of civilizations. Have a good morning, everyone.
The last episode we've had, it was about one of the famous Czech scientists. And this one will be also about the famous Czech scientist Leopold Pospíšil. I think he's the man who changed the anthropology forever.
In general, especially in the United States.
So what was his contribution?
Let's start with Leo himself. They called him Leo. He passed away 2 years ago, and he was really one of those anthropologists of the 20th century. He was born in former communist Czechoslovakia back in 1923. He studied law at Charles University in Prague. And during World War II, he was involved together with his father in an anti-Nazi fight in Olomouc. Following the overturn in 1948, he emigrated the country with his wife, but they were not able to take with them their first daughter.
Oh my God.
They emigrated and they were able to see her again only in 1968. Imagine that. After almost 20 years, she grew up with their grandparents. Yes. This itself is quite a story. Then he, through Europe, he ended up in the United States. He went through different businesses, ended up in the study of anthropology at Yale University, and started to work on his PhD in the early 1950s. And his subject was the Kapauku tribe in New Guinea. It was at the time the Dutch part of New Guinea, and that's where his story starts almost 70 years ago. He arrived there shortly after the first encounter, so-called first encounter, that happened in 1938. Only in 1938, the Kapauku tribes were able to meet at the first
non-Kapauku people.
And by the way, there are famous Australian movies that are called First Encounter, and they were Australian anthropologists that were filming.
Is it about Kapauku people? Yeah.
It's about the New Guinea. I'm not sure whether they are Kapauku, but they were shooting the meeting, the actual first meeting, the day, the hour when they met, the Kapauku or the local New Guinea tribe with the white man, so-called white man. And it's fantastic documentary, black and white. And so Leo Pospíšil went there, became member of one of the tribe because he adopted some dozens of children. He took care of them. He became a member of the tribe, and what he discovered was quite fascinating because he thought, okay, it's relatively simple tribe, in our terms at least, but with a very sophisticated system of law.
Legal
and
system.
Very developed economic system, transactions, etc. So this is what made him really famous. I can see I made myself some notes. So he worked in the States before he started to study law as cowboy, tractorist, bakerman, and even
he was actually the advisor to Ronald Reagan or someone.
He served as a anthropological advisor to George W. Bush Senior George W. Bush, and he was also a member of the American Scientific Society, which is an exclusive club of the best scientists in the world.
And the legal system, what you already said, that he studied law. So the priority for him was a legal system, as I understand. And what was the structure of the Kapauku legal system, or what was so important about that?
Well, I have to correct a bit my previous statement. He studied law, but at the same time he was anthropologist.
Yes.
So in his person happened a rare combination of these two completely different fields of expertise. And about his results, we can read in his pioneering work that appeared shortly after he finished his field work in New Guinea in the middle of the 50s in the last century, which is called Anthropology of Law, a comparative theory. And as I indicated already, the point was that the Kapauku tribe was a relatively simple tribe. Illiteral, no writing system, so they had to memorize everything. And he discovered at least attestations of at least 200 different legal cases when they were able to say that somebody trespassed their fixed law that they were perpetuating by repetition, by memorizing the individual cases. And they have the cases, they have the classification, and they have exactly defined way how such a person gets the punishment. And that shocked him quite a lot because he thought, okay, they may be cases ad hoc, so to say, from case to case. But no, they had quite universal categories of the law. They knew that this is not to be done.
Not written.
Normally.
That's what interesting. It's not written.
Yeah. Let's repeat it again. The system was never recorded in writing. And this makes the Kapauku tribe so unique, so inspiring, because now we understand much better, thanks to Leopold Pospíšil and his research, that the so-called social contract is very important in any given society, because if we look at our own society, we tend to regulate everything. We have a problem, we have a case, so let's do a regulation. And we think that more regulation means or leads to more justice, which is completely wrong, because formally all societies, you name it, went by general ideas about what is just and what is wrong. And now we forgot about it, because if it is not regulated, it's automatically allowed. So we have regulation, but we don't have ethics anymore. It's a category that gets more and more fuzzy, more and more difficult to specify, and most people actually go by regulations, and that's a way to hell, in my view.
It looks crazy difficult to understand the Kapauku society, because he was the first man they've met, and he didn't know their language. I think so.
He learned the language.
He learned the language, Kapauku language.
He spent there during the first field season almost a year. So he became one of them. And he could analyze, the legal system. He could analyze the way how they went about their transactions, because they were not only quite excellent in the law, but they also excelled in trade. Yeah. So he discovered that there was again quite a sophisticated system how they traded among each other using kaori shells. Kaori shells, shells that you collect on the sea, and of course they kept large herds of pigs. So pig was a very valued commodity.
He also wrote that they've had the concept of legal pluralism. What does it mean?
It means, at least as I understand his conclusions, that the Kapauku were able to extract from everyday experience a clear, crystal clear definition of the deed. And they were able to apply this category of a theoretical definition to individual cases, and not only to apply it to individual cases, but also to consider specific contexts. And as a consequence, they were able to produce a legally correct category, including the punishment in the society.
So it's almost similar to a Western concept of law.
It's very similar. It's very similar.
It's not written, but it's similar.
And it's not written. So that's very important because every member of the society was able to follow these concepts. Nowadays, who in our society is able to follow our legal system?
We should apply this approach.
Well, that's very tricky, and I would say even a sort of misleading statement. And why? Because logically, we are not Kapauku. We are much more complicated, sophisticated society. So we need to have a written, legal, regulated system. But my question is that if our system is not overcomplicated, because just remember, I think it was yesterday, Mario Draghi put online a study dealing with the competitiveness of...
Don't read it. You will be scared.
European Union. And he said, our problem is not the people, not the companies, but
in the United States, you can read it. Yeah, don't worry. You will see that how bad is the situation in the European Union.
But overregulation.
Yes.
And he says it's quite flat. Overregulation everywhere.
Actually, I saw one sentence which was like really striking, that in the European Union, we have like 100 regulations
and
regarding to technologies and 270 institutions.
I saw the same this morning.
Oh my God. This is crazy.
It's really scary. And just another brief brief comment. 20 years ago, the economy of the US and the EU at that time were more or less on the same level.
Yes.
Nowadays, our GDP is 50% less.
Yes.
It's half the US GDP, and this is really sick.
Yes, it is. So the main role in the legal system and in society played Tonovi. What is it?
Tonovi is, we can translate it as a chieftain or a big man, basically person that is running the tribe, that is in charge of... Well, they are not that big, but I would say a chieftain is, to me, the most appropriate designation. And this person was overseeing, thanks to his individual qualities, the whole system, how the society operated on a daily basis, including legal system, including ethics, including strategy of the movement, including declaring wars, because different tribes of the Kapauku were leading wars against each other. It was about territory, it was about a control of specific area in the forest, rainforest, and similar stuff. And also, this Tonovi or chieftain was overseeing disputes between or among different parts of the society, social behavior of the community, and of course, last but not least, economic transactions. And this Tonovi had to have 3 different qualities as a chieftain, which is a certain mana, a certain flavor. Then had to have some expert skills, like, fighter or similar dealer with individual components of the society, and also he had to know best, specifically the legal system. He was the person that really had to understand every single part of this system that was perpetuated, as we said already, by memorizing in the society.
Yeah. So for me, the main question is that how did his findings challenge the then prevailing notions of indigenous societies in general? Yeah, because this is a Kapauku, but what was this change in anthropology? What's
The big
new?
change was that we are almost 80 years ago.
Yes,
okay,
but
we have
they
modern.
didn't. What I think is they didn't know that indigenous societies had the legal system or the economic system. Is it like that?
Exactly. Back in the 1940s or after World War II, in anthropology in general, people thought, or the anthropologists thought in general, that such societies, they call them simple societies, egalitarian societies where everybody is on the same level. So they suppose, okay, they live in small tribes, they explode the nature. Such a very simple strategy of exploitation. And then Leopold Pospíšil comes back from New Guinea and says, look, I discovered this Kapauku. I went to this Kapauku tribe. He didn't discover them, but lived with them almost a year in the first field season, and says they have a very sophisticated economic system, how they trade individual categories of goods among each other, and they have a very complicated legal system. They have a law. And they looked at him and said, prove it. And thanks to his combination of study, anthropology and law, he was able to define what the law means in Kapauku, how is it performed, and what are the consequences of it. And he was also able to show that thanks to this legal system, perpetuated from generation to generation without writing. That's very important as well, without writing. That it's a key element how the society holds together. And he started also to talk about social contract, etc. Because if you have common denominators in the society, then you can hope that the society will hold together. Visions, definition of what is right, of what is wrong. Nowadays, we have considerably bigger problems defining what is right and what is wrong, because the first question comes, what's the regulation?
Yes.
What some statement says about what somebody did.
So it's so complex and difficult to understand the legal system that it's almost impossible to say what is right and what is wrong.
And it consumes also a lot of energy in the society, because in order to have a legal case, you need to hire 1, 2, or 3 or more specialists
and
to pay them dearly,
yes.
And spend a lot of time, because you have to go to different hearings, pre-hearing meetings, etc., etc. So the energy that you could normally use for the growth of the society, you consume it only to perform some formal acts to attain what we call justice.
What looks very important to me is that this is a simpler legal system than we have now, but I can imagine that the justice was delivered like in 1 day, 2 days, maybe a week. I don't know. I really don't know. I didn't read his book, but now it takes 10 years to deliver justice, and sometimes it's not even delivered. So this what makes cracks in the society.
Exactly. That's a lesson we can take from the Kapauku. But as I said, we are considerably more sophisticated society. We are much more complex. So it's logical. We have to have a written set of rules, regulations, set of laws, etc.
Yes.
But this system is becoming so weird and complex.
It's not a system; it's a burden.
That, as you said, well, we need it, but we could maybe talk
simple.
about how to make it more understandable and simpler. Because very often you have these hearings lasting for years and years, and at the end, the person who is charged or group of persons are formally guilty, and they plead innocent. And very often, there is then another round of hearings, because nobody knows exactly whether they really should plead guilty or not.
Yes. Finally, I wrote down one of Leo's quote. I call him Leo. I think it's fine. So it's very the anthropologist the role of the anthropologist is very similar to journalist. I read. If a scientist cannot explain what they are working on in 5 sentences, they are a fool. It's like in media.
When I was preparing,
do you agree?
Completely, because when I was remembering Leopold Pospíšil back in the 1990s, that was the time when he frequently taught at Charles University courses, general courses on anthropology and obviously Kapauku, etc. It was the time when I was studying Egyptology, and I had a privilege meeting him quite often. And this is what he said to me one day: that, look, Marek, if we talk about what is science and who is a real scientist and who is just seller of air, and he said, look, that's very simple. He said, for me, because if somebody doing a research for years and years for a lot of money cannot tell me in 5 sentences what is his research about and why is it relevant for the society, he is just loser. And it's to a large extent...
It's very easy for you because you can always say that you are trying to find a mummy.
Yes, but if you talk to...
I'm just joking.
Look, one of my friends, when we were running the Charles University and were administrators or vice rectors, Jan Konvalinka is the same. He is an excellent a scholar in chemistry, and he was always able to explain what is it about. I mean, chemical reactions and different procedures they have at their institute, which is really famous because one of the founding or one of the members there was a person that developed a cure against AIDS. So it's not true that if you do something else that you have it more complicated. Sometimes it's true, but in most cases, notice that the best scientists have no problem explaining their science in a couple of sentences. I'm not saying 5 or 7, but in a few sentences.
So thank you. Read something to the listeners. Read something from Leopold Pospíšil about Kapauku tribes.
A famous American scientist.
A famous
Yale,
American.
Lifelong professor at Yale University in New Haven.
Yes. Thank you and stay with us. Bye.
Take care. See you next time.